Welcome to another episode of Supernatural Tales. Today, we're diving into a terrifying story that took place in the town of Salem, Massachusetts. Prepare to hear the account of Mark Adams, a young adventurer who decided to explore an abandoned school and encountered the spirit of a child. Sit around the campfire and let the crackling flames envelop you as we listen to this chilling story. Mark Adams had always been fascinated by abandoned places. Photographing and exploring ruins was his hobby, fueled by the desire to capture forgotten beauty and hidden secrets of the past. When he heard about an old abandoned school on the outskirts of Salem, he couldn't resist the temptation to visit. The school, built in the early 20th century, had been closed for decades, surrounded by dark stories of inexplicable events and ghost sightings. It was a cloudy afternoon when Mark arrived at the school. The building, though in ruins, still exuded a melancholic grandeur. The broken windows and hanging doors seemed to whisper stories of times gone by. Vegetation had overtaken the courtyard and outer walls, giving the place an even more ghostly aspect. Mark entered through the main door, which creaked ominously. The air inside the school was heavy, smelling of mold and rotting wood. He turned on his flashlight and began exploring the dark corridors. With each step, the sound of his feet echoed, as if someone were following him. But he was alone, or so he thought. The classrooms were filled with dusty desks, dirty blackboards, and torn books. Mark took some photos, trying to capture the desolate atmosphere of the place. In one of the rooms, he found an old honor roll with photos of students who had excelled. One photo in particular caught his attention, a girl about 8 years old, with a shy smile and big, bright eyes. Below the photo, the name Alice. Continuing his exploration, Mark reached the school's basement. The wooden staircase creaked threateningly with every step, but he descended, determined to explore every corner. The basement was even darker and damper, with cobwebs in every corner. As he lit the room with his flashlight, he saw old chairs and tables piled up, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Suddenly, Mark heard a faint sound, almost imperceptible, but clearly a child's laughter. His heart raced, and he tried to rationalize what he had heard. Maybe it was just the wind passing through a crack. But the laughter repeated, this time clearer. He followed the sound to a corner of the basement, where he found a small wooden door. Opening the door carefully, Mark entered a small room that seemed to have been a playroom. There were old dolls, toy cars, and children's books scattered on the floor. In the center of the room, there was a porcelain doll sitting in a rocking chair. As Mark approached, the doll's head slowly turned, and its glass eyes seemed to follow him. A shiver ran down his spine, and he took a step back, almost tripping. That's when he saw the figure of a girl in the corner of the room. She was facing away from him, with long dark hair and dressed in an old white dress. Mark tried to speak, but his voice came out as a trembling whisper. "Who are you?" he asked, even though he knew the answer might be frightening. The girl turned slowly, revealing a pale face and big sad eyes. "My name is Alice," she said, her voice echoing supernaturally. "Did you come to play with me?" Mark felt a profound fear, but also an inexplicable sadness for the child. "Alice, what happened to you?" he asked, trying to remain calm. Alice began to tell her story, each word laden with pain and loneliness. She had been a student at the school many years ago. She was a shy child, often bullied by her peers. One day, after a particularly cruel incident, Alice hid in the basement. Feeling completely alone and hopeless, she died there, unnoticed until it was too late. Mark felt tears well up in his eyes as he listened to Alice's tragic story. He wanted to do something to help the lost soul of the girl. "Alice, I'm so sorry for what happened. How can I help you find peace?" Alice looked at him with her big, sad eyes. "I just want to be remembered," she said softly. "I want someone to know that I existed." Determined to fulfill Alice's wish, Mark spent the following days researching the school's history and searching for any information about Alice. He found old records and spoke to older residents of the town. He he discovered that Alice's death had been a scandal hushed up by the school and community at the time, a tragedy many preferred to forget. Mark decided to organize a small ceremony in Alice's honor at the abandoned school. He invited some locals and fellow historians to participate. On the night of the ceremony, Mark returned to the school, carrying flowers and a photo of Alice he had found in the records. Upon entering the basement, he felt Alice's presence once more. "We are here to remember you, Alice," Mark said aloud. "You will not be forgotten." During the ceremony, Mark and the attendees shared Alice's story, reading excerpts from her diary found among the archives. They lit candles and left flowers in the old playroom. Gradually, the air in the basement began to change. The feeling of sadness and despair was replaced by a serene calm. Mark looked around and, for a moment, thought he saw Alice smiling at him before disappearing into the shadows. He felt he had finally made a difference, helping a lost soul find peace. As he left the school, Mark felt a lightness he had never felt before. He knew Alice was in a better place now and that her story would never be forgotten. He returned to Salem with the certainty that sometimes, even the most haunted places can find redemption. And so ends today's tale. I hope you felt the same tension and mystery that Mark felt that night. Until the next episode of Supernatural Tales, where new haunting stories await to be told. Good night, and remember, sometimes the past is never truly dead, just waiting to be discovered.